in front of this august gathering. And myself, as a layman, can only apologize by quoting in front of you an old English adage, which went on something like this: fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So, whatever I would be saying, and for whatever it is worth, I would most humbly request you to forgive me if I say anything which is useless. But anyway, we have to take responsibilities, we have to take decisions, and we have to speak, though, on many occasions, whether or not, let me frankly say, whether or not we know much about what we are saying. But that's a manner of speech. I most sincerely thank the leaders of CGS for very kindly giving me an opportunity to say a few words. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start with the most basic on the LDC graduation, for which Bangladesh has been aspiring for many, many years. As stated by our guardians at the UN, at the World Bank, for instance, at the IMF, and other financial institutions, the goals required for the LCD graduation has been dictated as follows. Number one, gross national income per capita, or what we say the GNI index. Secondly, the human assets index, which we call HAI. And finally, the economic vulnerability index, EVI. The qualifications are stated as such. A country must qualify in at least two of these criteria. However, if the gross national income per capita, GNI, exceeds a certain level, you can forget about the other indices. I think that's how it has been put. Now, what I will be saying might be a bit surprising for you. And please forgive me for saying so. Even though the three indices, which had been aptly, rightly, and justifiably identified by our guardians of economy and the guardians of our world in decision making, yet, as I said, please forgive me, these are flawed criteria. I'm saying this, and I'll tell you why. And let me qualify what I'm saying. When I say flawed concepts, I'm only talking in terms of a conceptual idea, not on practical terms. On practical terms, these three are definitely the three justified criteria for graduation from the LDC. Absolutely. I'll not question them. But what I'm questioning is something totally different. And that is, no economy can be devoid of the society. That's my point. And this is a simple, very simple statement. One doesn't have to be a PhD from MIT or Harvard to say that. Even a layman like me, can say that. What I just said, economy cannot be devoid of the society. And that one statement, I believe, should be enough for an appropriate LDC graduation. That one statement. Economy cannot be devoid of the society. To my mind, the most important criterion for graduation from LDC to a respectable level in this world, in the club of almost 200 countries, the only reasonable criterion and the only important criterion is the democracy criterion. And this word is missing from the list of the three criterion which I have just mentioned. This is important because we are not talking just about the economy. We are talking about people. We are talking about the welfare of the people. We are talking about the self-respect of the people. Money doesn't determine everything. Economy doesn't determine everything. Having said that, you might even say that whatever this guy is saying, he's in a delirium. Particularly when everyone amongst us is crazy preparing to celebrate the Bangladesh development progress and our graduation out of LDC. You are probably right. I'm not saying you are doing anything illogical. That is the most logical thing to do. Absolutely. Yet, let us have a closer look at the three criteria. Number one, leaders in economy, today's leaders, who won laureates, who are winners of Nobel Memorial Prize in Economics, they have stated categorically one thing. That is what? GNI per capita has no meaning, absolutely no meaning, without a proper income distribution pattern. That's right. That's what Paul Krugman said. And that's what Joseph Stiglitz said. And in front of us, Ms. Tandon, Joseph Stiglitz, out of despair, left the World Bank, started saying what he believed in, and that led him to the Nobel Prize. I sometimes say, and I had the privilege of working with him, I sometimes say that if he hadn't left the World Bank, he would never have received the Nobel Prize in Economics. Maybe this is an overstatement, but that's how I think. When a country like Bangladesh, we're talking about criterion 1, that is the GNI index. Let me give you another piece of information. A very highly respectable foundation in Germany had carried out a study, and they found that at the moment there are 5 countries, 5 underdeveloped and medium developed countries, where the gap between the rich and the poor is increasing abnormally. And on top of that, where the growth rate, the acceleration rate of the gap between rich and the poor increasing, Bangladesh is on the top. So what does this criterion of GNI represent? To be very frank, if it doesn't mean anything for the millions in Bangladesh, what difference would it make if it makes difference for 100, 1,000, 2,000, or 5,000 very rich people in Bangladesh? Sorry, I have to say that. Let's come to the criterion 2. We're talking about human assets. And what is the scenario here? Look at the young, brilliant human assets in Bangladesh. Ask them, what do they think of Bangladesh and what they want to do? All they are doing right now is fleeing Bangladesh to some developed country, USA, Europe, or whatever, and seek a good life abroad. That is the reality. And why not? I can't blame them. They say, why should we not have the privilege of living a better life? What answer shall I give them? And at the same time, they also say that I don't have the opportunity to exercise my talent inside Bangladesh. Why should I rot myself being inside Bangladesh? So this is the real scenario of human assets in Bangladesh. Let me not sound too much negative. I will rectify my statements at the end. Don't worry. And finally, about the criterion 3. What can be more vulnerable? That is economic vulnerability is the criteria 3. What can be more vulnerable in an economy than rampant corruption and total by the bureaucracy? And there are dozens of investors who came from abroad to invest in Bangladesh, and not to speak of those who are our indigenous investors. They just got tired and fed up and they left the country. Simply said, it's not worth it. This is the reality. Please forgive me. All I'm doing is bringing in front of you the reality of Bangladesh. But I'm not undermining. My objective is not to undermine Bangladesh. I'll explain that to you. So what are we doing to justify our inaction? Let me call inaction. Let me not call bad action. So in order to justify our inaction, what are we uttering? We are uttering development first, democracy later, good governance later. That's all we are saying. But mind you, this propaganda will not take us far, not to speak of what we want to achieve in the next 50 years. No. And if we proceed the way we are going, we'll only be building the future of Bangladesh on a hollow economic base. And our LDC graduation would be, if I may say so, just a piece of paper, a paper degree. Nonetheless, We have a wonderful set of data in front of us. That's what I said, the positive sides. We have a wonderful set of data in front of us from the BBS, Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics. Nobody will question them. And when the World Bank quotes our development indices, they take the data from our BBS. They have no other option to do that. They cannot question it. Nobody can question it. Although we know how this data is prepared, but I do not want to go into that. The good signs are, let me now tell you the positive aspects. The skyrocketing GDP growth rate, beating many other countries, perhaps all other LDC countries. It's a good thing. Number two, the mega infrastructure that we have been creating in Bangladesh. That's a positive thing, although we need to maintain them in future. The maintenance is an aspect of planning which has to be taken into account whenever we prepare a new project. Whether we have the capability to maintain a mega-sized project in future. Number three, the fantastic RMG export success. We're almost at the top of the world in RMG export. The Bangladeshi people did it. There's no question about that. Or maybe we are second only after China, but China is going into other industries now. Number four, the bolstering remittance figures, which we see every day. Our unskilled workers, basically our unskilled workers, who toil hard from dawn to dusk in the immense heat of the Middle East. They are the ones who are bolstering the remittance figures. My hat's off to them. I'm sorry, I have to be explicit. Our experts, about whom I talked a few minutes ago, who want to have a better life abroad, going to USA or Europe or some other places, they don't remit a single dollar in their whole lifetime. This is a fact, I'm telling you. They enjoy their lives abroad. And as I said, for good reasons, because they argue that why should they rot in Bangladesh? Good and bad. And finally, number five, the fabulous foreign exchange reserves which we have been able to create. These are all positive aspects. These are the ones which are watched and noted carefully by the World Bank and the IMF, and perhaps the UN. And that is what is carrying us through our graduation out of the LDC. And I have named only a few. I have just named 5 of our success points. There are many more. Don't be despaired. These are the good things which Bangladesh had achieved in the last 50 years. And we must take pride in them. But half a second. There is another list to which I would also like to draw your attention. Can you, however, name just one major production industry that has been created in Bangladesh in the last 1 decade by a Bangladeshi entrepreneur? I'm talking about a Bangladeshi entrepreneur. You just name one set up in the last 10 years. You won't be able to do it. Why? Let me be very frank. You're all here and you all know about Bangladesh better than I do. The simple reason is they do not have the confidence on the return of their investment. As simple as that. So what do? They launder their assets out of the country. I'll come back to that point. And added with that, do you have any idea about the total number of local industries, small or big, that had been shut down during the last 10 years? Get that figure. You'll be startled. And the unemployment added up due to the COVID. I'm not blaming anybody. It's my job here. At least I don't believe in the concept of blaming each other. And I don't want to do that on record. Number three, in fact. Do you have the data related to inflationary figures over the past 10 years? You're talking about economy? You're talking about economic success? What are the inflation figures? Just have a look at that over the last 10 years. 10 times in respect of certain commodity, day-to-day commodity items. 10 times in the last 10 years. BBS has all the data, although I do not want to qualify their reliability, on their reliability. Number 3. Do you have the devaluation figures of Taka against the US dollars in the last 10 years? Just have a look. I'm not an expert on the subject. I'm only a public servant in public service. You are the experts. Look at these figures. Next. Did you ever have a look at the change in the consumer price index? I said already, during the period of the last 10 years. So the price of rice was 10 years ago, and what's the price of rice today? Simple item. Or looked deep into the figures related to printing of our greenbacks, not US greenbacks, our greenbacks by the Bangladesh Bank, and therefore resulting in an unbridled inflation. There's no statistics whatsoever. Nobody ever talks about these figures. Bangladesh governor of the Bangladesh Bank never said, never uttered, or never gave a statement on how much currency notes are being printed. That is a secret. Item number 6. Do you have the figure on how many billions of dollars that had been laundered both inside the country and from inside the country to outside? Simple questions. And these are all related to our economy. I'll come to the social indices a little bit later on. Now, do you have the figures related to extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances during the last decade in Bangladesh? These are relevant questions you have to ask when you want to qualify from LDC to a higher income country in the world. No matter whether the 3 criteria take care of this. Ms. Tembon can answer to that question. Number 8. This is very specific. And forgive me, I have to utter this. I do not like to utter these words, yet I have to tell you. Do you have the number of innocent women who have been shamelessly raped and sexually abused during the last decade? Sad. I feel ashamed myself for not having been able to do anything about it, being a humble citizen of this country. It is my shame. Number 9. Do you have the figure for the fictitious cases against political dissidents in this country over the last 1 decade. The number is in 6 figures. I'll finish in a few minutes. I'm already near the end of my speech. And finally, do you have the figures for the opposition, number of opposition party activists falsely accused in these concocted cases during the past decades? Number is in millions. And so on and so forth. The statistics on this are all available, but who cares? In a way, these are irrelevant data in a country of development. Let us not bother with this, bother ourselves with this. Finally, I'm just coming to a close. But I would like to emphasize this point. Finally, we have no dearth of talents in Bangladesh. Notwithstanding anything I have said so far, we certainly do have the potential in Bangladesh to overcome all these. Cautions put forward by experts on economic challenges to Bangladesh while transiting to a better economic world through LDC graduation will simply disappear. I don't worry about these challenges. They will simply disappear if we can, very important, if we can forge a national univision, going above our political divide, as well as our personal greed, I want to be specific, and our petty self-interests. These are also some of the realities of Bangladesh. And devote ourselves to the welfare of the millions of still downtrodden and underprivileged in this country who also want to lead a minimal, decent life in this tough world. Half a century ago, millions of Bangladeshis laid down their lives to seek freedom for us, where we are living today, in a free and independent Bangladesh. They sought freedom to speak, so to say, for the cause of democracy, human rights, and good governance, as well as freedom from hunger, so to say, for the cause of attaining economic emancipation of the poor and setting up a just and equitable society in Bangladesh. In an independent country, which in 1971 we christened as Bangladesh. Well, while we graduate out of the LDC in 5 years from now, we just can't afford to let these lofty ideals go in vain. What would we say to our liberation war martyrs? What will it say to them? Or for that matter, to our younger generations, which has been mentioned by many of the speakers here already. If we are to be answerable for our colossal mistakes on democracy, human rights, and good governance, there is no excuse for that. And finally, not to mention our chance failure, I use this phrase, chance failure, on taking timely decisions on the global climate change, without which intervention our future generations may even go extinct from the face of this planet. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and everyone, distinguished guests. Please forgive me for my impertinence. Thank you very much.
Thank you for honestly providing us your unique perspective. We will hear we will hear from our chief guest after lunch. For now, the guests and speakers are requested to move to the dining area through this door, and the journalists through that door.